Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever you are. My name is Dimitri, and I have a pleasure today to be here with my friends and colleagues, Jacob, Dean, and Jeff. Welcome, guys.
Hi, hi, Dimitri.
Thank you, Dimitri.
It's so good to see you. But why we are here, what are we going to discuss? Can you tell us a couple of words about the report we're discussing today?
Yeah, quarter four report.
Exactly. And this is the first time we're presenting this thing, our quarterly report. We call it CTI Insight Report. And that is because it's not only about telemetry and, like numbers, what we have seen, like number of the attacks, but also who is behind it. What are the weapons used against the targets? Who are the targets? What are the threat actors operating in each industry? So it's so good to have you here, guys. And Jake, I know you are in the US, and Dean and Jeff, where are you, guys?
Ireland,
Ireland,
the,
yes.
the south of Ireland.
That's good to have you here with us. Before we started this session, I was saying the guys like we need like another one, but we have Guinness on top on the table.
Many Guinnesses and maybe a whiskey or two on top.
Yeah,
Right.
when it comes to Ireland, Dimitri, you never have a single drink. It's always a few drinks.
Yeah,
Well, I take it as a promise.
yeah.
And we have
Not to feed any stereotypes or anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you, guys. Yes, and we have also here folks connecting from different places. I see Christian Brink from Chile, Peter from Austria, Dmitry from Germany. So welcome, guys. It's so good to see you here from Tunisia. Okay, wow, so distant places. Yes, welcome. So let's discuss it. Let's discuss our findings. This is our Q4 2022 report, which covers 90 days. To be very specific, from September 1st to November 30th of 2022, and we just released it yesterday. Let me show first a couple of things. We want to present like a strong points, let's say like strong data, like findings. Okay, you can see it on my screen. So basically, the cool thing about what we have seen is the attackers, they have used about 62 samples per hour when we speak about unique malware. What we mean under unique malware, it's the sample is different to any other samples, at least by hash. So it's cool because in occasions, like you may find like the one same sample is used to attack different targets worldwide, but in this case, it was about 1,500 samples um, produced, to like unique per day to target the victims, and that's something very interesting. Regarding the geography of the victims, we can see that the United States, it's like about 50% of all attacks landed in the US, followed by Japan, Brazil, Canada, Korea, and so on. And of course, in like why US? It's a big country with a huge economy, also internet penetration. But it's interesting to see countries like Japan and Brazil probably are not that like widely discussed on public, but also in there, including Chile, you can see that, and Mexico and other countries. And when we speak about Europe, Great Britain, it's actually the most attacked country, and then followed by Germany, Italy, Belgium, and so on. And it's connected, of course, to the economy first, because cybercrime, it's the threat or cyber criminal threat actors. They produce most of the attacks, but also we have um, targeted attacks, and that's something we are going to discuss just a little later. So let's start, guys, like discussing this report. By the way, we are not only four who worked on that report, we also have other friends who have cooperated. Our paper is publicly available on our website, so you can go and read it. Here's the QR code. You can see, scan it, and it will take you to the page, to the website, where you can get the full PDF version with the full numbers, and very easy to follow, right? So let's speak about Windows threats. Jake, what is the most interesting? What we have seen there?
Most interesting? I mean, personally, I think the most interesting is that Emotet actually made a comeback. I mean, like, they were taken down last year, and a couple of the people were arrested in Ukraine. But Wizard Spider really made a comeback in hitting like our top numbers for Windows threats. I mean, they're really closely followed by Quackbot, which is also a Russian threat actor. Um, but I think that's actually insane that they made it back. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting that like despite of all the efforts, right? When people
right.
like law enforcement agencies like put in so much efforts and also researchers like it's never dying. It's like Guidra, you cut a neck and it's growing again and again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, like loaders, right? You mentioned I know that you were going to speak also about loaders.
yeah. We saw the most popular loader was GU loader, um, GU loader. We saw that across so many of our tenants. And what was interesting is it's almost exclusively delivering Steelers, Redline Steeler and Raccoon Steeler, and uh, it's interesting to see the most popular things delivering commodity malware, right?
Hmm.
Because
Right.
all those Steelers are malware as a service, things you can just go out and buy off the shelf and are used to operationalize your malicious activity, right? Um, so the most popular things are not custom role, right? They're not the big government groups. It's what you find on like Hack Forum.
Hmm. Yes, indeed, info stealers for me it's like such a big pain because that like initial access brokers they're ruling, in there are several threat actors also targeted attack threat actors, nation state threat actors already relying on those info stealers just to blur the line when
Yeah.
like working on IR, like it's
Right.
hard to find.
Yeah, you can't trace back to APT whenever everything is a commodity malware, right? Like those initial infection points are really looking identical all the way across the board. Everything's Cobalt Strike followed by or following, an info stealer that's already installed.
Yeah, indeed. Yes. And we have more guests also saying hello from Canada, from Dominican Republic, specifically from Toronto, someone also from California. Yeah, it's so good to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us. Well, when the thing, yeah, like Windows, it's something we know it's always under attacks. It's something to be here, and still there is some sort of like misconception or like a wrong idea that basically if you have Mac, it's almost impossible to get it infected. It's like, the chances are close to zero. But what you have seen, like looking into the, again, telemetry, not perceptions, not like, public findings on the internet, but things which happened, which we stopped. Like, what happens on Macs?
Yeah, I think we still see a large number of infections, the same on OS X. The targeting is a little bit less active, almost just because the majority of the market share is Windows, right? So your exclusive targeting of an operating system is a little bit less active, but you do see the inclusive targeting of OS X or Mac OS, right? Where all of a sudden people are starting to write things in Golang so that they can just recompile them for whatever operating system and go ahead and ship out the binary, or targeting browsers, and those browser plugins or those things targeting specific browsers are going to work all the way across whatever platform. And so you need to be protected against all of those things. And it doesn't matter what operating system you're on.
Yeah, that's true. And like without browser, we can't do anything nowadays. Like even accessing cloud and things. Yeah, still on those things, it's just gold, right? And don't tell me that there is no ransomware nowadays, or we have some.
Yeah, only one of the top things that companies come to us for, right? And I mean, I think the biggest one that we saw this year was Lockbit. which obviously went up to version 3 this year, and still also ransomware as a service is one of the biggest financial crime malware pieces in the industry right now.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to see the last week also like a huge campaign of malvertising, basically seeding info stealers first through Google. If you type like for the most popular programs applications, it takes you to a fake website. So why I'm mentioning that, basically the first payload the victim gets, it's an info stealer. Once the credentials are stolen and gets a loader, then that loader installs the ransomware strain on the computer. So it's sometimes we think about ransomware. Well, I don't click here. I have everything patched. I have a like I don't know SOC 24/7. But eventually it may happen also just through a simple browsing on the internet and downloading packages, which actually are melted packages. It's not like completely fake. You get the original installer, but at the same time, it's like there's an additional module just stealing all the information, right?
Yeah, you just need to be careful with Google advertising at the moment with that. You have that little bit of seemingly basic social engineering, and all of a sudden you have clearly compromised some very important systems, especially if you're on your organization corporate device.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the super common TTP, right? Like,
Yep.
I know it's not directly in this Q4 report, but like Genesis Market or other like resellers, right? You see multiple stages of infection where the initial infection goes through an info stealer and gets that base access, and then they resell to ransomware groups. And so, right, you were talking about difficulty to trace back to an APT, and that's because they're buying off of these same groups. But you need to be able to detect that initial infection, and then you're probably going to see ransomware show up later if you didn't catch it.
Yeah,
indeed.
100%.
Interesting to see all those paths.
Right. And guys, Jeff, Dean, and thank you, Jake. What about Linux? Are there any threats in there, or it's also like everything it's safe, peace, tropical weather, everything is fine?
No,
Yeah, no,
I'm
sorry, Jeff. I was going to say, no, absolutely. Linux hasn't got away lightly either. I think with the same thing with Mac, there's a lesser proportion of endpoints running Linux in the world overwide. There's probably a smaller amount of Linux targeted malware. However, that doesn't mean it's any less dangerous or prolific in a sense. So like some sources estimate that 90% of all public cloud services run on Linux. So if you think about it, this provides an extremely enticing threat platform for attackers. So like as a result, Linux is increasingly targeted to cyber criminals for stuff like cryptojacking, where they'll basically get into some high-powered cloud environment, hide in the corner, so to speak, and set up crypto miners. And even though we're in the midst of a cryptocurrency winter at the moment, it's still a very useful thing for them to monetize for obvious reasons. It's designed to be anonymous. It's digital, so it's easily transported. And then if you use things like tumblers, you can even add to the anonymity and add to the untraceability of it, So that'd be one of the bigger threats. In regards to infection vectors for Linux, there seems to be like Windows, for example, a lot of it would be through phishing emails and spam emails. But for Linux, it'd be overwhelmingly through the exploitation of vulnerabilities. And like it almost seems like every time a new CVE or high priority vulnerability is published for Linux, attackers set about rapidly weaponizing it, and then over the coming weeks or months, you often see these crop up in campaigns. Some examples would be from like 2022, the one affecting Atlassian Confluence, and even a slightly older one for 2019 for WebLogic, which is abused by Rig Coin Miner. In regards to what sort of malware we see targeting Linux, I think what we see was kind of par to the course for what are other people seen in the industry, both other vendors and researchers and think tanks, where overwhelmingly the payload of choice is cryptocurrency miners. Apart from that, probably info stealers, because a lot of Linux environments are, they might contain some valuable information for in regards to espionage and things like that. There, I think I pretty much covered, Jeff. Unless I know I interrupted you earlier. I apologize. Maybe you've something.
No, you're grand. That I think Dean kind of summed it up pretty nicely there. What you would actually find is you would have a lot of kind of initial vectors dropping kind of a malware botnet. You would have kind of very kind of commonly abused CVEs weaponized very quickly by these groups. But as Dean said there, even though we're in kind of a crypto winter at the moment, cryptocurrency is still kind of preferred choice of exploitation for these guys. So a lot of them tend to kind of drop their kind of Bitcoin miners or kind of pawn rig, as Dean mentioned earlier. But yeah, unfortunately, Dimitri, Linux threats are still a very kind of prominent thing in the industry.
Yes, indeed. And I know it also from Latin America because in some countries in Latin America, it's even by law that the governments and public institutions they must use Linux. And there is some sort of thinking if it's Linux, it's safe. So you just need to install it and that's it. Even like, or probably install also a firewall and to change the root password and to enable authentication through password and a certificate and you're a super hacker. But yeah, we know we know that it's not true. By the way, speaking about Linux, that is exactly next week when our two other researchers, Pedro and Joselillo, will be presenting at the SANS CTI Summit about our research on the Linux threats. So probably it's something like if you are interested in threats targeting Linux, I highly recommend it to you also to follow that topic. And we have more also greetings here from Jamaica. It's thank you for connecting. It's great, and also to see that beautiful sun. Same as is here in Miami. It's a beautiful weather. From Argentina, hello. It's so good. Thank you, Marcelo. Yes, guys. But the question in general, like, okay, we saw this, we saw that, and like how marketing works. People who work in marketing will tell you basically, so what to do. Oh, you need to buy my product and you're gonna be fine. It's like everyone says that. But in our case, we say that in order to protect yourself, you got to do several things. And one of them it's the deliverables which come with this report, publicly available and also available for you on GitHub with the most popular shared TTPs, MITRE ATT&CK TTPs, and also countermeasures you may take with the help of MITRE Defend. Several YARA rules also available for you there. In other words, it's actionable. Um, threat intelligence information, countermeasures rules you can apply in your environment independently of what kind of um, you know product or technologies you use. So it's something we just want to let you know in advance. And also greetings from Ewald from Chile. Yes, thank you, welcome. And let's speak about the industries. First, let's discuss threats in the automotive industry. Why automotive industry? For several reasons. First, as BlackBerry, we are pioneers and we are also like a very well positioned company protecting, delivering like secure systems to many or most of the vehicles worldwide. And at the same time, when COVID came, we saw the shortage of chips. So at least like in many countries like Canada and US here, it's not that easy to get a car, a new car, I mean, because sometimes it's more expensive, and all those things, like it's just like it's happening. So we need vehicles. So what have we seen from the CTI, from the cyber threat intelligence perspective, in terms of the automotive industry attacks, weapons, threat actors, and so on?
Yeah, I can take this, Dimitri. So from our telemetry, we actually mentioned it earlier. We've seen a lot of kind of like downloaders, backdoors / info stealers, as well as ransomware itself. I know Jacob actually mentioned Gular earlier to us. Gular is a very kind of common commodity malware that's been used in the world kind of Q4 last year. When it comes to kind of info stealers and backdoors, we've also seen. I know again, kind of a bit of an overlap here with our Windows telemetry when it comes to it, but seen like Raccoon Stealer, Redline Stealer, as well as Remcos Rat. I know we've actually mentioned Remcos Rat a few times in our most end attacks as well at the kind of latter end of the report. Some very kind of interesting findings on that. But I think you kind of hinted at there as well, Dimitri. Given the kind of complexities of building a car now at this stage, like it's a very big kind of supply chain, very kind of lengthy and kind of complex um, kind of process from getting kind of raw materials to getting an actual finished car kind of out on the car lot.
Yeah, but you mentioned something, guys, and it's in our report, probably if you already read it, but there's something like a supply chain attack in the automotive industry. What happened there?
Yeah, 100%. So as I was kind of hinting at there, like when it comes to a car manufacturer, you will need your raw materials, your kind of plastics, your electronics, glass, metals, all before you actually assemble the car. So you have a very wide supply chain. A lot of kind of companies involved in the automotive industry would use kind of a just-in-time kind of model for all of their deliverables. But obviously, given that you have such a wide range, such a complex supply chain, is definitely open for attack. Uh, Unfortunately, last year, an Asian car manufacturer actually had their supply chain compromised when I think it was a plastics or raw material supplier was actually hit with ransomware. Now, the actual car manufacturer itself wasn't hit, but the knock-on effects of that was kind of drastic. They had to kind of close multiple plants and kind of had to cease production for a few days, just because, again, the way that the industry works, if one thing falls, the kind of dominoes fall, unfortunately.
I think Jeff, in that case, didn't we read that particular supplier or that particular manufacturer, who is gigantic multinational, had a supply chain of 30,000 suppliers?
Yeah,
Would that be correct? So if you think about it, 30,000 suppliers making them parts to build one car, and one of them suppliers was hit with an attack, and I believe I quote, it closed down or put to a halt 12 factories. But
yeah.
that's mind-boggling, and also shows the inherent vulnerability in the fickleness of these worldwide supply chains. Like, we see ripple-on effects, like with the war in Ukraine and Russia as well, causing supply chains for the construction industry and like the other food industries, not rippling across Europe and further afield.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. In our report, we also have other industries also covered, like for instance, financial industry, healthcare industry. So we invite you also to read the report and also to get insights from the CTI perspective. This is the point, right? And remember that information is not like let's say like a journalistic work. It's not about telling stories, but also how to get protected, like what you can practically do, like practical steps, measures in order to lessen the risks in your industry, in your company, using contextual and anticipative actionable threat intelligence. So that's cool. But when like speaking about the most active threat actors,
Yeah,
who they are in the last Q4 of 2022, who have we seen with our telemetry, with silence?
yeah. So I can handle that again, Dimitri. So we kind of broke it down to kind of two kind of core malicious players. We would have our kind of our crimeware groups, and then our kind of our more kind of sophisticated APT groups. So when it comes to like crimeware, they're obviously kind of much more financially motivated. Jacob actually mentioned earlier that a lot of it is kind of more commodity malware that's sold as a service and they're kind of widely distributed. The kind of core players in our crimeware report is TAF 505, Black Hat, who are a ransomware group. They were actually referenced back in our automotive report, as well as TAF 542, with them responsible with Imitet, which obviously, as Jacob mentioned earlier, kind of still lingers around in kind of 2022 as part of our top kind of Windows threats. When it comes to our advanced persistent threats, obviously these are going to be kind of far more kind of complex. They kind of often say sponsored threats, as well as they tend to be very specific when it comes to their targets. Our kind of our top kind of APT players that we've seen throughout the last quarter are kind of APT 32, which are kind of Asian based, APT 29 or the Dukes, which are kind of a Russian based group, as well as Mustang Panda, which was kind of at the end of last year, kind of using lures around the kind of Russian and Ukrainian conflict, which is actually another group that we kind of highlight in our most sent attacks in the report.
Right, and yeah, that Mustang Panda, it's for others, it's also known as a honey mite. Yes, and Dean, I know that you know a lot about Mustang Panda. You've been following particularly several threat actors, but one of them is this one. What can you tell, like, interesting about the latest campaigns we have seen in the last 3 months?
Yeah, so the group seems to keep a core, tool set and core set of TTPs. What minute and subtle changes depending on their campaign, for example. Like they're most definitely one of the prolific, larger allegedly state-sponsored groups out there. And they typically use like thematic lures designed around current events. For example, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, maybe some ongoing stuff going on and with Europe, with NATO, stuff like that. They often target other countries in the Southeast Asian peninsula, their neighbors, such as Myanmar, such as Thailand, such as Laos, Cambodia, these countries on that there peninsula. But they're not just confined to any other region. They've often been seen over, targeting entities in Russia and even further afield as Europe. They've been seen to use a gamut of different tools, so like, for example, Poison Ivy, which has been around for a while, Cobalt Strike, which I think everybody uses regarding the other side of the resource. But one of their go-to tools is PlugX, which is a commodity malware rat, a very efficient and effective, powerful rat. And the typical TTP to get this rat infected onto a machine would be a thematic lure containing, like, example, a RAR file, a link file, and a decoy document. The decoy document would typically be a legit document that once the user executes the file, the document would appear on the screen, but in the background, the link file would kick off a malicious execution chain. This would consist of usually a legit binary, legit but susceptible to DLL search order hijacking. That means when the legit binary is loading its DLLs in order, the threat actor substitutes in a legit DLL for a malicious DLL loader, which in turn loads an encrypted .dat payload, which is the PlugX payload. Once all of that kicks off and works in tandem, the PlugX payload is embedded in memory, and the machine is at the mercy of the attacker. It can beacon back to the attacker then, and the attacker has a myriad of different commands. Basically, it has honed the machine and can do what he wants. And we've seen this over and over again, targeting different, like, for example, Myanmar, which went through a military junta about 2 years ago. And it's been seen to be involved in several attacks from this group, or allegedly it's fed back to this group, along with different areas in Europe, different countries, and different entities of all sizes. So that's one example.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. That was a pretty impressive overview. Thank you for that. And speaking about TTPs, um, again, inviting you to visit our website and to check the report. You can download the full copy. And here in this section, in the appendix section, you can see the most common MITRE tactics, techniques, and procedures used by the threat actors we have seen. So all of them, we have studied all of them, and we created this table. So imagine if you work in one of the mentioned industries, this will be very helpful for you to test your detection capabilities or your monitoring capabilities. Is it even like inside of your visibility protection scope? Yes or no, like monitoring. And finally, this is also very interesting. This table is about behaviors and common techniques. So for instance, if it's a discovery, system information discovery, but how exactly? You can see here also the commands. We have seen the most popular commands, right? That will be also very interesting for you if especially you are like you love Yara, I don't know, like in my case. So what I would do is to write Yara rules based on these commands as well, and not only for the files, but also rules for the memory. And you can run it also and check in them because once in the memory, it just runs like in plain text. So you can see here like a lot of information, which is not generic, which is easy to digest. That is from our telemetry and our analysis and easily presented to you, so you can basically see what to hunt for, um, whatever it is. Is it based on CSMON and Sigma rules? Is it like something you're gonna hunt with Yara? It's up to you guys, but it's everything here in the report. So before we close, and thank you very much, guys, for all this nice overview. We have also here friends from Vienna and from Ireland, of course. And thank you for being with us. It's Martin, it's Rory. Um, Guys, what are the conclusions, like lessons and also forecast? We don't want to make like a forecast like like in 2023 or 2024, just something like in short terms. So give me like pick one lesson you have personally learned and one takeaway or one forecast you would like to share with the audience. Your expert opinion is very welcome.
So,
Sorry, we all went.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, yeah, I
What
didn't say
nice.
who will start, so
Yeah.
please, Jeff, you may start, and then Jake, and then Dean.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I know I discussed it in the automotive section of this talk, but I was actually just surprised and a bit horrified just how big an automotive supply chain can actually be. Like a lot of them consist in very kind of small to medium industries that supply obviously this larger kind of monolith of an automotive company, but just how large that attack surface is, and how, as Kev mentioned earlier as well, that how one Kev kink in that chain can kind of send it to an unfortunate stop. When it comes to forecasts, I think we kind of covered it again earlier on in the call. When it comes to, I know most of our telemetry, and I assume most users would use Windows, but again, when it comes to Mac OS and Linux, no one is necessarily safe, especially with cross-kev programming languages like Golang. I'd say you definitely see a lot more kind of commodity malware being designed for one operating system, but having the ability or the flexibility to be kind of converted into both a Linux binary as well as a Mac OS binary.
Thanks, Jeff. And Jake, what do you think?
Um, I'll take the easy out on the takeaways. Train your staff, train your employees, because most malware comes in through mouse spam. It is generally people that install the bad, like your employees that install the bad malware. It's not somebody like running a specific exploit in order to get in. And I think my prediction is going to have to be that we are going to keep seeing Ukraine, Russian malware and lures. I think that's just going to continue to grow, especially with how the geopolitical relations are going and escalating through that entire region.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Good tips. And Dean, what do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah, pretty much like it's the same age-old advice for the last 20 years. Like, if a CV comes out, the likelihood is it's going to be exploited very rapidly by threat actors. A famous one is Log4j from that happened over the last few years, and there's still a lot of hosts worldwide that are susceptible to that. So user patching, user training, and like there's so many open source locations of threat intel out there, and as you said, Yara rules and different sorts of defense techniques that we include in our blog. They're free to everyone. Scrape these and implement them in place. And nothing can be 100% secure, but you can put things in place to make it extremely difficult to get compromised. Common sense, basically, a lot. It's easy for us to say that we work in this industry, but a lot of these tips are easily taught as well.
Yes, and thank you very much, guys. Yeah, I see also on my side this the ecosystem in general. It's so complex. Let's say you just saw in the beginning of this presentation also countries like Chile, Mexico, and Brazil, and that is because of the massive way and the factory of malware from Brazil attack into the world, but also the attack in other countries. Let's say like Spain, Italy, Portugal, and others. While we have another threat actors, right, like Jake mentioned, like those groups like Gamma Red targeting Ukraine, it's insane. So basically, we need products, we need technologies, but also we need CTI, we need cyber threat intelligence, and which can be actionable, not only stories, but something you can use to at least if you cannot protect, so you can detect. Like you need to have that visibility in the end. You need to see that, right? If you can't prevent it, at least you need to see that happening so you can take decisions, measures, threat hunting, incident response, and such. So, yes, thank you very much, Jake, Dean, Jeff. It was fantastic speaking with you. I know probably that was a first time for some of you. So good job, and it was my pleasure also to share this virtual stage with you today. And thank you also for your great job on the report, and to the other guys who have contributed on it. And our commitment is to produce those reports continuously, contributing to the industry, to the society in general, bringing high quality content which you can really use independently where you live, what technology do you use, and which is whatever your operation system is. So thank you again, guys, and thank you for being here with us, everyone, and have a
Thank
good
you.
night, evening, day, morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.